And what is up? Welcome in GC Live Friday episode of the show. Final preview talking South Carolina versus Florida. We're live at the Market on Main, as you can tell, avoiding the weather. Final remnants, I believe, of Tropical Storm Nicole here in Columbia, South Carolina. I think the weather in Gainesville is going to be just fine tomorrow from what I've heard. But we are, as always, live from the Market on Main, hanging out in an igloo. As we have done. We did this last year. Great place to come, not only enjoy the game behind us, but to stay out of the weather, stay out of the cold once it does get cold. So we'll tell you a little bit more about Market as the show progresses. Check out more on marketonmain.com as well. But we are inching closer to South Carolina versus Florida. I'm, of course, Wes Mitchell. He is Chris Clark. Chris, we've talked about the game all week long. I don't know if anything has changed as far as our outlook on this one, but we're about 24, 27 hours, I guess, away from kickoff. Where's your head at right now?
Yeah, about the same, man. But I think, general overview theme we've talked about all week is, the line has, I guess, crept down a little bit to about 8.5. Maybe still 9 some places. 8.5, I think, is the last one that I saw.
Eight some places.
8 some places.
I think.
So 8 to 9, 8.5. And I think what we've talked about is that's pretty fair, right? You got a couple teams who, maybe similar in some statistical categories. Maybe there's some parallels between the two teams, but also some key differences. And I think you look at the fact that this is a road football game for South Carolina. Look at the fact that South Carolina, in terms of turnover margin, these teams are opposite, right? Florida's been pretty good in that category. South Carolina, not so good in that category. First time that they won turnover margin in a conference ball game was last week against Vanderbilt. Both these teams have lost some games, but they've generally lost them to quality opponents, right? With the exception of, South Carolina losing to Missouri, a team that's better than their record indicates. But you lose to Georgia, you lose a road game to Arkansas. When you look at this Florida team, Wes, 2 out of the past 3 weeks have been losses for them, but they came to Georgia, who's a playoff team, and LSU, who's also potentially a playoff team, and then survived last week against a beat-up Texas A&M team. So it's a game where the margins maybe are kind of tight, right? Like maybe one of these teams is not head and shoulders better than the other, but I think that's when it goes to some of the small things that you have to look at within a game and something you've talked about a lot all week, and that is how good or bad is this matchup individually for South Carolina?
Yeah, man, I think it is a tough matchup. You look, I think every year you start out the season, you kind of think you have a feel for this game. For Carolina, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster in terms of you go in, you probably say the A&M game on paper is a loss. As the year progressed, you maybe said, well, actually, Carolina has a decent shot to win this game, even though they were not favored going into that game. They do. They win that game. Then you look at Missouri. That's a game Carolina always expects to win. I think the fans do, even though Missouri has now won 4 in a row. The more, Chris, that I look at that game, the Missouri loss, I know people still are talking about it. I don't even know if it's that big of an upset. I feel like the teams were fairly close, and none of us really wanted to believe or admit that going in because of Missouri's record.
Yeah.
How many games has Missouri played that they could have, realistically, one thing goes different, they go win the game. So I think you got a lot of teams below those kind of elite SEC teams that can all beat each other. Now, I think 8, 8.5, 9, that's about right for this game. I think Florida is favored. They should be favored. I think Carolina's going to need several things to go their way. I think the fact that it's in Gainesville it is a factor in this game. I think you can't take a whole lot from what happened in this matchup last year. Completely different coaching staff for Florida now. That was a team that really struggled, obviously, last year down the stretch. So I'm looking at it, not that, I think Pearson on our 107.5 show has been accused of basically saying South Carolina cannot win this game. I'm not in any way saying that. There is a path, but anytime you're a touchdown plus, like a little bit over a touchdown underdog, I think that means on paper you're going to need some things to go your way. Like you're going to need some things to turn the game. Is that a special team score, as we've seen South Carolina has been prone to get? Is that, a defensive score, a couple of extra turnovers? This is a Florida team that has not turned the ball over a ton, but also when they have not been able to put up points, I think it's been more because of, Anthony Richardson turning the ball over. You kind of have good Anthony Richardson, which is, I think, one of the most dynamic players South Carolina will see all year long. You have had some games where, as Nick De La Torre pointed out to us, he was kind of just due for an interception and a fumble per game at times early this year. So, I look at it, if you're Carolina, can you force Richardson to be bad Anthony Richardson, to kind of fall back on maybe some of the things he was prone to doing early on? The last 3 weeks, he's been very good at protecting the football.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part. Glad you brought that up. For South Carolina, he has been a lot better in that category. No interceptions the last 3 weeks, and that includes West games against Georgia and LSU. Texas A&M, of course, was their most recent contest. So he has been better there. And then he's shown the ability to reel off those long runs, and he can do it from anywhere. You think about players where typically you're thinking about a receiver or a running back. Well, he can hit a home run from anywhere on the field. That's what Anthony Richardson can do, and he can do it in any situation. And another big issue with his playing style and what he's shown so far this season is you can have the perfect defensive play call. You can have everything covered downfield. You can have everything hemmed up, and you feel good about everything. And then he makes one guy miss, and now it's a house call. And so that's a big problem. I think that South Carolina, as you alluded to, they've got to just kind of, for lack of a better term, just like muck this game up. Can they do that? I mean, that's what they have done. You think about 2 recent Carolina wins, A&M, Kentucky. They got off to fast starts. They mucked the game up. They forced turnovers. They gave themselves short fields to go and be able to score points on, get up early in those ball games, and kind of hang on for dear life from there. Mm-hmm. Hanging on for dear life will be tougher because of the explosiveness of Anthony Richardson. But the key there is that they're going to have to turn him over and force him into making mistakes. In some ways, Florida's probably fine with the game being on his back because he can carry a team. But you want to force him into some mistakes. I think it's kind of, you look back early in the year, Wes, Kentucky beat this Florida team 26-16. That seems to be a tough path for South Carolina, right, to get there. But Richardson we went over it earlier today, 6 rushes for 4 yards. Certainly it seems like he's been encouraged to expand his running, and he has in every game since then, and then didn't play well just in terms of his overall quarterback play in that contest. The week before, he ran, I think, for 3 touchdowns against Utah and played really well. And so we've seen both versions. Which version does South Carolina get? Which version of Florida's defense does South Carolina get?
Yeah, I think they're a good bit more explosive than we have seen Kentucky and A&M be this year. So I think that's going to be a tough ask. When I think the most concerning thing from a Carolina perspective is how easily Vanderbilt was able to run the football last week. And I think some of it this year has been matchup based. Like you look, Georgia's going to be able to run the football, even though that's not quite what they do quite as much this year. But against Carolina, I would like Georgia's chances to run the football. Like that just kind of is what it is. But I thought there were some signs of progress this year. They obviously are thin now. They've gotten thinner as the year has progressed. I think they still, you can't use it as an excuse, but they do still miss guys like Mo Kaba, Jordan Strong up front. They're a thin defense that is playing a lot of guys for a ton of snaps. Yep. And, I think that's worked against them. But you look at what Vandy was able to do, just kind of small chunk play after small chunk play, making it look kind of easy when they were not a team that came in having run the football very well at all. I think that's a big concern when you look at this Florida team. Now, the way teams are able to attack Carolina on the edges, Florida is an offense. And again, you kind of have to parse it by saying, who have they played? Like they've played some really good teams, some really good defenses. And you look at it, Florida has been kind of like Carolina's offense in that it's been a little boom or bust, big plays, their rushing numbers are good, but a lot of it does come as the year has gone on from Anthony Richardson making plays and making big plays for them. So some of it, talking again to the guys at Gators Online, it hasn't always come within the structure of their offensive running game. In other words, it's not necessarily, handoff 60 yards to the house or handoff 6 yards, chunk plays. It's more, short run, short run, short run. Oh, we got a punt. Short run. Oh, Richardson takes it off for 60 yards. So it's kind of been a little bit like Carolina, and it's a little bit more hit or miss. The scary part is, from a Carolina perspective, can you do enough to give them enough of those misses? Like what I saw against Vanderbilt, the answer would be no.
Yeah.
But that's why you play the games. That's why you practice. That's why you go watch the film, all that stuff. But I just think there's a lot of concerns. So then if you can't do that, then the onus goes over to the offense to just try and outscore them. And, I do think there is some carryover from what you did to Vandy, because this is not a good Florida defense. Like it's really not. But can Carolina's offense do enough, consistently enough, to put up 30-something points in this game? Like I feel like there's like questions on both sides of this thing.
Yep.
And you almost have to thread the needle. I feel like if you're gonna talk about playing to a score, you got to thread the needle to where this running defense for South Carolina does just enough to like hold them down, and the offense sort of scores what is probably the peak of what I think is realistic to expect in this game. If Carolina wins it, what do you think the score has to be?
Oh,
I think you think it's a little bit lower than I think, because I just have no faith in them being able to like muck this game up. Like I think the intersection of those two claims is like 31-28, 33-31. It's like if things go very well on offense against again a defense that's not great, I could see them putting up 31, 34 points. Much higher than that, I don't see it. Defensively, I could see them being in a place where they make Florida sort of earn it. You kind of just limit possessions. Clayton White doesn't like bend but don't break, but in some ways that's kind of how it would have to be. Like you're giving up some yards, you're even giving up some points, but at least you're making them earn the points, and the clock is rolling. You know what I mean? So then it kind of comes down to a couple of possessions as opposed to just going up and down the field on them. I think that's where that intersection is between realistic point total for offense, realistic point total that you could say, I could see them holding them to that. I look at it, high 20s, low 30s. On the other end, I don't know if I can predict South Carolina to score like 38 points.
Sure.
I don't know if I can predict South Carolina to hold Florida to like 21 points or something.
Yeah, so you look at the two games. I feel like I keep going back to this well with these references, but Kentucky and A&M back-to-back, right? Both of those games, Carolina did successfully muck them up. Now, they had some adversity in different ways in both those games. I mean, Kentucky, they were able to pull away. A&M, they kind of had to hang on, but they did muck those games up with early turnovers, early scores, big special teams plays, right? They were able to make all those types of plays in both of those games, but they were two different scores. You had, 24-14 with a late Kentucky touchdown, and then A&M 30-24. I think it's more of that latter. You don't look at this and say, they'll probably hold Florida to 14. I don't think that's reasonable at all. So I think it has to be more. Carolina's probably, I would go there. They probably got to score 30 points or more to be able to win this game. And so I'm with you. I don't see 38 as realistic. So that's probably your sweet spot, like a 30-24, 30 to whatever is less than 30 on the part of Florida.
Yeah. So this is a Florida team that's kind of interesting, man. Like I think. So Billy Napier is calling the plays. Like he's always been an offensive-oriented guy, former offensive coordinator, former quarterback himself. Like that's kind of what he's all about. But he every coach kind of has to make that decision, especially the higher and higher they get. Now you're in an SEC job. Are you going to be just an offensive-oriented head coach, but you have a play caller for you, or are you going to call the plays? From all indications are Napier has decided, I'm a play caller. I'm calling these plays. It's been interesting to hear some of the chatter about Florida, how they operate on offense. I'll give them credit. Against A&M, they were very patient. And, we saw it going into that A&M game. We talked about it. A&M has struggled to stop the run, but they had a very talented secondary. So Florida, you see a lot of times coaches will sort of say, all right, we need balance. Like we need, even if we're running the ball, we got to mix in a throw here to keep them off balance. In this game, Florida, for the most part, stuck to the running game, stuck to the quick perimeter passing game, and stuck to what was working, and really showed patience. The Gators online guys gave a lot of credit to Napier for just showing patience, getting the ball to both their running backs. You have a couple of backs who are probably underrated. They have the ability to make you miss. They've got some balance. Etienne, a very patient runner. He will hang out sort of in, I don't know if you would call it a pocket when you're talking about a running play, but that's really what it is that he'll hang out in there. He's one of those sort of new school runners that he's not just hitting the hole like this. He's going to let the hole develop, almost come to a stop at times, and then he sort of darts through there. So they have a couple of backs that are solid. Then you pair them up with Anthony Richardson. And this is a game, if I'm Florida, I think that's where I'm living. Like if you throw the ball, I don't know what number you want to put on it. Obviously it matters. Number of possessions matter as well. But if you throw the ball 20 plus times in this game, you've probably outthought yourself, or you've just gotten into a some type of shootout, I guess. But if I'm them, I'm living on the perimeter with the running game, with the quick passes. It seems like Shorter, their top receiver. The vibes are similar to like Marshawn Lloyd. The vibes are that Shorter probably won't be able to do much. So if I'm them, I'm living in the running game, forcing Carolina to prove they can stop it. And then I'm keeping those Carolina pass rushers, which actually have been pretty good this year at getting pressure when they're allowed to pin their ears back. I'm keeping them having to play the run as opposed to letting them pin their ears back.
Well, and Florida has more injury concerns beyond Shorter. Their other starting wide receiver, Frazier's, who had a good game against A&M.
Out for a while, right?
He's going to be out for a while with a shoulder injury. Billy, he's got a pretty bad shoulder. So going that route.
He's got a shoulder.
He's got a shoulder. And then Zipper, their tight end, also remains out. But that said, they still have some weapons. You look at Xavier Henderson, Ricky Pearsall, who's got good speed. They'll use him. They'll get him involved in the running game, kind of like Carolina did with Xavier Legette last week. Their offensive line is playing well, better than we've been accustomed to with Florida the past few years. The concerning thing about this, Wes, so there's several things, but like you mentioned, Vanderbilt's rush offense against South Carolina's run defense, and that was certainly concerning because Vandy hasn't been that good running the football all year. They had success against Carolina. We saw Missouri, very inconsistent offensively this year. They were able to make some things happen. They didn't explode against Carolina, but certainly early in that football game they had a lot of success. Missouri did so not only with their backs, but with the quarterback, Brady Cook. Well, Anthony Richardson is that times 20, 25, 100, a million. And so you look at their backs, Johnson and Etienne, you look at how they involve their receivers in the run game, some of the formations they use, some of the motions they use, and then Richardson. It just doesn't inspire a ton of confidence in South Carolina's ability to stop it, absent the things that you mentioned, forcing them into mistakes and turnovers, and then just limiting the explosive plays. What they need to do is you're going to give up yards in this game. Mm-hmm. It would be a huge surprise if you don't. If they do, great. But when they get in the red zone, can you make them kick field goals? Can you limit the explosive plays that result in touchdowns? And I think that's a place that Carolina's going to have to live.
Yeah, Peter on YouTube, by the way, shout out to everybody joining us live, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Peter saying a little beamer ball wouldn't hurt. I think you're right, Peter. It's going to take some extra effort from one of the other units. you'd love for it to be a score, but at least to give you an extra possession and then take advantage of it. I think, create some turnovers. However, I still maintain creating turnovers actually is sort of it's an outcome of some of the other things we're talking about. If you're running the ball well, then you're probably not going to be able to put them in situations in order to turn the ball over. Sometimes you get a gift. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But for the most part, if a team is comfortable, confident, you're not. I mean, how many turnovers come because a quarterback gets hit from behind, hit while they're throwing, has to force a throw, is in a 3rd and long and forces a throw, is losing and forces a throw. All these turnovers, they don't just happen in a vacuum. They happen because you're doing other things the right way and controlling the game, I think. So, maybe Carolina gets a gift or two. If you get one, take advantage of it, but these are things you can say for any game that you go into when you're not necessarily the favorite. And I think we've given a lot of love to Florida. Like, we have acknowledged, like, they are a team that I think comes into this game expecting to win, which is kind of strange considering Carolina absolutely blew them out last year. It wasn't even close, and even put them away. Give them credit. They stuck the dagger in last year when they could and really got the momentum and just rode the momentum of that early game into the rest of the game and sort of put Florida away. But, man, I'll say this. You mentioned, and I don't want us to get too off the rails and go too deep into this, but I think it is worth mentioning because I think it's something Carolina's going to have to deal with. Unbalanced formations basically is something they do quite a bit of. You mentioned some of the formations that they can utilize to give you problems. They will do a lot of this. And what that means is essentially you can look for it tomorrow. I guarantee they're going to do it against South Carolina. They will take they may do both ways, but when I saw it, they will take their left tackle and shift him over to the other side. And he basically is tackle eligible. He's on the end. Now, the receiver who is out here to the left, the number 2 receiver, if you're counting it like defense. So 1 would be the most outside receiver. 2 would be the second most outside receiver. That guy is still on the line of scrimmage. So that receiver is no longer an eligible wide receiver to go out and catch a pass. However, the way the game is played these days, as much as people throw the ball to the perimeter, you still have to put a guy out there because they will outnumber you and just quick throw it out there all day long. So, and this is not reinventing the wheel. This is not something that other teams don't do. But, I don't know if you see a ton of opponents this year against South Carolina go heavy, unbalanced line. This is something Florida does quite a bit of. And what they will do is they will pick their numbers. They will run plays to where Richardson has the option, obviously, to keep her hand off, and they'll even implement power. So they'll have pulling guys this way, pulling guys the other way, and then the bubble screen to the outside. So if they have numbers this way, they're going to just hand the ball off. If you overload to the unbalanced side, they're going to run the ball with Richardson. If you pull a guy from the perimeter to try to stop the run, they're going to throw the quick screen out there. So, Chris, to me, that sort of amplifies.
Yep.
I think is a good word for it. It amplifies some issues that we've already seen Carolina have. So be on the lookout when you see it. It's going to even look like, if you look very closely, it almost looks like an illegal formation because there's 2 receivers lined up on the line of scrimmage. They have to do that in order to keep it a legal formation with 7 guys on the line of scrimmage. That tackle on the far right becomes eligible, but they are really doing that to mess with your numbers. They're trying to outnumber you at the point of attack and then try to hit you there. It's going to be very important for Carolina's guys to have a plan for that and then to be able to implement it on the fly.
Discipline and tackling, will be big in this game. And it's a couple things that, particularly with the discipline, Wes, they struggled in the past 2 weeks against Missouri and Vandy. Look at the missed tackle numbers against Missouri. I don't remember what they were even against Vandy, but wasn't bad missed tackle numbers against Missouri. But a lot of that was because, frankly, they weren't in the play until the end. Took a lot of bad angles. perimeter play wasn't as good. Missouri killed them with just the sideways kind of stuff, which is along the lines of, in a different way, some of what you're describing. If they feel like they have numbers out there, they'll shoot it out there. They run a lot of RPO stuff, and you have to be able to make tackles. And I think that'll be critical in this game regardless. We saw last week against Vanderbilt, South Carolina, you felt like you're watching the play develop, and you feel like, okay, here's an opportunity to make a play. South Carolina wouldn't make it. Bad angle, sometimes a missed tackle, and here goes Vanderbilt for 6 yards, 8 yards, 9 yards. That's what you're going to have to avoid, because the talent level of Richardson, ETN, Johnson, some of these receivers that they get involved on the perimeter, it ratchets up, right, that compared to Vandy. And so that can be a difficult thing for you. We've also seen both of these defenses, Wes, Florida and South Carolina, they've had their missed tackle struggles this year. South Carolina's notable, very poor performance was against KJ Jefferson in Arkansas, 21 missed tackles. Florida has also had, Wes, a 21 missed tackle game. It was against LSU, where they gave up 45 points to the Tigers. So, again, which version of the Florida defense will we see? Can South Carolina take advantage of that? And can the Gamecocks play a defense more along the lines of what we saw against Kentucky or against Texas A&M? The trend has been in the past 2 weeks, actually, that they have not played as well against Missouri and Vanderbilt. So they need to be able to get back to what we saw in the wins previous to that.
Yeah, and just to be completely clear, if you are tuning in, you missed the first part of the show, and you are wondering, like, why are we talking about Missouri? We're not talking about Missouri in the context of the Missouri game. We're actually trying to talk about it more in the context of what did we see the last 2 weeks against Missouri, against Vandy, that will carry over to this game. If Florida was a team, frankly, that had an offense that just struggled or didn't have players or did not run the football well, a lot of what you saw maybe wouldn't be quite as valid. But unfortunately, it looks like a Florida team that can take advantage offensively of some of the issues South Carolina has had, on the defensive side. So can some of these things be cleaned up? You can always get better. However, in some ways, you also are what you are once you get to this point of the year. And it's a defense, again, that just doesn't have as much depth as it would like, because the injuries have kind of racked up, the early season injuries to starters. And now, just some guys that could have been sort of rotating in for you have been banged up and have been hurt. So I think it's kind of one of those things, man. You offensively, like I'm a big believer in complementary football. Offensively, you're going to need explosive plays. South Carolina has to have explosive plays to win. Even against Vandy, we saw a lot of their drives be finished off because of explosive plays, and we saw too many penalties. I feel like they had some drives, man, that could have been like very successful, eat away at the opponent, just kind of tick away, that really got just wiped out by penalties. So it's kind of a catch-22 in a lot of ways. You're going to need to have explosive plays, but you'd also like to let your defense rest a little bit and to play some complementary football. So I think those are things to keep an eye on tomorrow. How long is the defense having to play? How long is the defense on the field? And can you kind of balance out this game in terms of time of possession, number of possessions, and and all those things. So, all right, we've given Florida enough love. Let's talk about a path. Let's talk about Carolina's offense, what we saw against Vandy, and how much of that could carry over. The big question on everyone's mind: what can South Carolina get from Marshawn Lloyd? I think as the week has progressed, there's a little bit more optimism of maybe him being able to help out this week. Also, I'll say it like this. If they were to get anything out of Marshawn Lloyd, I think that's a massive bonus. I'll just put it like that at this point, Chris. You're talking about something. It's not just a bruise, like sometimes you hear bruise, you think, oh, it's a bruise. But not all bruises are created equal. This is a bruise that you call contusion, which makes it sound way worse because it is. You take a helmet straight to your thigh area, your quad area, and A, it's going to hurt. B, the opponent knows you have that. and see you're running back, so you
Yeah.
get hit.
Yeah.
So let's frame it up like this: assuming either Lloyd can't go, which is my expectation, frankly. You assume either Lloyd can't go or is heavily limited. I think that means trying to get Bell the ball again in the backfield and trying to get that going. The other guys did some good things. They spread the wealth last week, but I think as far as like running between the tackles, you're sort of bell cow workhorse back. I just realized bell cow like works very well with Jaheim.
It does.
Never thought about that. I think it's got to be zero. Like it's going to have to be him. I think I actually think he may have. I just have this feeling he may have his best game running the ball as a Gamecock this week. And maybe I'm thinking that because he has to.
He does. Well, he does have to, and so he figures to get a high number of carries again this week. And just thinking through the guys, like let's think about what we saw against Vandy in Marshawn Lloyd's absence. We saw a lot of 16 carries, I think 19 overall snaps at running back. He played some snaps, obviously at receiver, tight end, whatever you want to call it as well. And we saw Juju, we saw Christian Beal-Smith. Beal-Smith had the long touchdown run, but only had 3 carries and was so banged up at one point that it took him really a couple minutes to get off the field. So he's clearly not 100%. Juju McDowell is more of a guy that you want to have be an outside runner. So out of the guys that we've seen play, and I know people are talking about, playing Rashad Amos or where's Dante Miller factor in, or even Lavassier Carroll, somebody like that. Your inside presence as a runner and your most healthy and effective presence has been Jaheim Bell in the last game. Beal-Smith is not going to be 100% obviously in this game. Can he play? Yeah, probably. Will he give you something? Probably. But I think we saw some of what Bell can do against Vandy. We were watching a little bit of it earlier today, Wes, in the 107.5 studio, and he had some runs where he extended some plays. He took a run that was a 0-yard run where there's contact at the line of scrimmage, and it's 3 yards or 5 yards. That's what he's going to need to give this team, and maybe in some other instances can give you some explosive runs that we didn't necessarily see last week.
Yeah, he didn't have the explosive runs last week, but I got to say, man, I think they're there. Like, I think there is the ability, the skill set for some explosive runs, because I think he does give you that ability to fall forward, to make people miss. I look at it like this. Can you create more of a run than what was blocked for? Yep. And I think he does that. Like the average last week wasn't great, but I think he had several runs where either it was like this close to breaking. And so let's give him the same grace we give other people. This guy is not a running back in that he's just played a bunch of running back. Like I think over time, as he gets more comfortable, I've heard he's had a good week of practice this week. I think as he gets more and more comfortable there, you're going to see a few of those start to break. And if I remember correctly, there were, and I don't, Chris, remember if these would have been categorized as quick throws or if they were backwards throws, but I think he had 2 decent gains that would have been solid, but got erased by holding on the outside. I think our boy Juice Wells actually got both of them, if I remember correctly. Don't come beat me up if I'm wrong, Juice, but I think that was right. So, the potential is there for Bell, and I think that, again, I'll go back to what I said at the beginning. They're going to need that. Like they're going to need. I don't know if you can just drop back and throw. Like Florida, not a great defense, not a great pass rush, but man, we know Florida has athletes. They always do. They never don't. Like I thought Clayton White, when he said this week, he said, I've been around ball enough to know, like, Florida's always going to have players. Whether they're a good team or a bad team, they're always going to have players. So I don't think it's fair to ask this O-line to block if you're just going to drop back and try to throw the ball. You're going to need just some semblance of a rushing attack to settle into this game and give Rattler an opportunity to go then pick them apart.
Well, and that leads us in maybe a question. Our guy Big Red here. Thoughts on DK Joyner getting snaps at Florida? I think, let me start with this. Spencer Rattler, I mean, nothing that we haven't said already, Wes. Said this after the game last week, but Spencer Rattler had his best performance against Vandy. Was some of that, does that need to be viewed through the lens of it's Vandy? Yes, to a degree. But we still saw his most well-rounded game where he showcased all of the positive attributes that he brings to the table as a quarterback. Improvisational ability in the run game, had a really nice 15-yard run. Outside the pocket, rolling out, making a throw that only his receiver can catch. We saw that. One-on-one opportunities and deep downfield throws. Like, we saw all of that. And bonus, he took care of the football. Is it going to take a similar effort? Maybe not that good, but I think it will. It will certainly start at not turning the football over, but they're going to have to hit some of those explosive plays, whether it's Juice Wells taking a short pass and making it happen down the field. Seen him do that this year, or a well-designed, well-executed post pattern for a touchdown. I think we need to see that too. But another element that you would think will be not introduced but continued to build upon is DK Joyner at quarterback. I feel like we probably will see that because with Lloyd's status, South Carolina is going to have to create some things in the running game. Marshawn Lloyd is so good at breaking tackles in the open field. They're going to have to kind of manufacture a little bit more of that. And so how do you do that? Well, you got to kind of scheme some of it because you can't replicate Lloyd. So you have to kind of do it, I don't know, in the aggregate, like a money ball type of term. You got to be able to get Xavier Legette involved, on the edges. You have to find, use Juice Wells as an extension of your run game, but also getting Joyner in there and letting him play some snaps. I feel like we'll see that tomorrow.
I feel like that's a very safe bet.
Yeah.
And that's not even anything I've heard. I just think we saw what that did last week. And I think you got to continue to expand that package, man. Like it can't be DK goes in and then just runs the ball and you take him out. Yeah. And then, you put him in another time, he runs the ball, you take him out, and the fans are like, oh, what are you doing? This never works. It's got to be like we saw the creativity of, we were talking about Step did the breakdown of the DK play, as he called it, on Gamecocks Plus, and that's on Twitter. We did a little story on Gamecock Central as well. But that was a fun play. Like, they shifted Christian Beal Smith over. He takes the direct snap. He hands the ball to DK. He does basically what it amounted to like an orbit motion into the backfield. They're supposed to throw the ball down the middle to Van. It gets covered up. He comes back to like the last option on that throw, basically. But just the design of that, and all that was designed to get Vandy's eyes just into the backfield.
Right.
Like, what is happening? Go get the football. Mm-hmm. I think. And to their credit, they covered it up, the first option, actually very well.
Triple covered it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if they had a drone watching practice for that one, but credit to them. Point being, you can build off of that. You can do a lot of different things off that. And I think, as we talked about, man, this is a Florida defense that they will miss tackles in the open field. They will give up some plays. So you're going to have to continue to do those things, execute those things. I think finding ways, like you said, get the ball to Legette. Like, I never thought I would be saying that. But Legette with the ball in his hands, I mean, the little move, we were watching it earlier, the little move where he did like the little almost like shuffle step and got skinny and then kept going up the field. He's borderline dynamic if you can give him the ball. Now, he struggled, obviously, we know, with the ball in the air at times during his career. It just hasn't taken off for him. But talented kid, man. I wonder some of the stuff you do with Jaheim on the little quick throws on the swing pass. Can you put Joyner and Jaheim in the backfield and then orbit Legette and almost use Legette as a pitch man on the outside? Like, I think there are some things you can do with 17. All these things are predicated on executing your normal stuff well enough to where you can kind of get into your offense, get into a rhythm, and then start to mix things in. But I mean, Leggett, like I think very truly he is a key to this game. Even if it's 3 or 4 carries, like get him involved. Like I think I think his upside is actually that I think we've downplayed, just how good he actually could potentially be.
Yeah, and I think his usage, and some other guys, in a broader sense, I think South Carolina schematically has to find some ways to mess with Florida's linebackers. You don't want them to be able to just come downhill clean and be able to make tackles on your running backs and just easily run sideline to sideline. These guys, Ventrell Miller, Amari Burney, they have played a lot of football. I think Ventrell Miller played for Spurrier at Florida. I mean, he's been there forever. So they're talented, they're productive. You got to find a way to get those guys kind of out of sorts. And that's not going to be easy because they are so experienced. But you can't let them play free. You need to get them thinking a little bit. So some of these type plays that we're talking about, I think, are key to that. Wes, I had the most random prediction ever in my staff predictions. Did you see it?
Yeah, I did not. Please tell me.
All right, so I will spoil it here on the show. Amarian Brown has his first touchdown of the year against the Gators. That was my prediction. Don't know if it's a pass, which he's been close to. Don't know if it's a run. Not sure. I also have
throw.
I have no basis for
I was about to
this.
say, is that
other
did
than
you have a dream?
Well, he told Josh Vann that he was going to get one when Josh scored. So that was kind of my basis for that.
Okay, well, guys, we are pumped. We've got our food coming out. Are you ready for your podcast debut?
Yeah.
What did you bring us?
All right, so we have our grilled tomato cheese with
Oh
our
my
hot
gosh.
bacon and truffle fries.
Looks
We've got
incredible.
ranch.
With some ranch, yep.
With
And
ranch,
we've
of
got our
course.
smoked pork quesadilla with goat cheese coating on top.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Don't need napkins.
Yes, probably.
Yes, we will. Definitely.
Awesome. Yeah, so as y'all can tell, we're at Market on Main. We are live. It is, I think, stopped raining. We are in our igloo. You can do the same. Great place to come. Enjoy the outdoors, but also stay warm. And they have their Market Party Express as well. By the way, Chris, I was told before we went on air that I've got a free ticket to enjoy. I was about to say a free ticket to the Tennessee game. It is a free ticket to tailgate at the Market Party Express Cockaboos prior to the Tennessee game.
What?
So what we're going to do is go to our Instagram.com/GamecockCentral. And if the person who predicts the game closest for tomorrow for the Florida game will win a ticket to the Market Party Express for the Tennessee game. So if you want to buy a ticket to the Market Party Express, go to marketonmain.com. Let's see, third from the left, Party Express. You can click that link. You get all the information. Essentially, they bought a Cockaboos and turned it into a party bus. They have you can go out there for if you're graduating, you have a graduation party there. Maybe have a wedding reception there. You can have all types of things there. So Market Party Express, really, really sweet. If you've never experienced the Cockaboos Railroad, great place and way for you to do that. Again, marketonmain.com. Dude, this food smells amazing.
It's wafting into our yes.
Let me just say, that kind of bacon, like the thick
cut
bacon,
beautiful.
Ooh.
Yeah,
I could eat bacon on anything.
Oh, there's no doubt. It's fantastic.
We have to keep doing the show, don't we?
No, we're getting close to. I think we're about at prediction.
We're about to wrap this thing up.
Prediction
So wait, hold on. AB touchdown. There was no you didn't deep dive the film.
No,
and be
no.
like,
And I literally thought about the Gamecock football crew, the film crew captured Josh Vann. That was his first touchdown reception of the year. So he's coming off the field. Everybody's dapping him up and everything, congratulating him. He sits down next to Marion, and Marion goes, I got to get me one. I'm like, that sounds good. Good week against Florida to do that. So maybe they not that coaches are going, well, shoot, he said he's got to get one, so now we got to make it happen. But he's actually been close, Wes. And we do know they'll get him involved in the short passing game. Hey, maybe even the run game. Who knows?
I thought you maybe deep dived the film and saw that speedy slot receivers have crushed Florida.
I should have said that.
Yeah, something to keep an eye on. Tight ends have crushed them. If Jaheim Bell is playing running back, is this a big week for Stog? Maybe potentially. Let's see. I'm trying to knock out everything that needs to be talked about. All the thoughts got to come out now. My prediction, dude, I went very simple. Nicky Memori is going to rack up the tackles. I think he's going to lead the team in tackles this week, and I think he'll have double-digit tackles. Yeah. I just have visions of him and KJ Jefferson. Boom, 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 against Arkansas. I think it'll be very similar this week. But as we did our 107.5 show today, it hit me. My prediction should have been that I think Jaheim Bell has his best game as a runner since he joined the South Carolina football program. I think he's going to have to. If he does that, maybe they got a chance. I'm not willing to predict he goes for 100, but I wouldn't be surprised because I think there's going to be yards to be had. All right. Are either one of us, our predictions are already out there on Gamecock Central. How close were you to picking an upset, or you feel?
No, I felt pretty convicted about a Florida win in this one. That's the way I was going.
What was your score?
It was 34-24 Florida tomorrow.
Mine was 35-27, so
pretty close.
Kind of on the same page there. Again, in no way does that mean South Carolina cannot win the game. Like,
Absolutely.
There's a reason you play the games. If they go down there, if they win turnovers, if they have a special teams type defensive type score, I think they'll win the game if they do that. But it's going to take those extra efforts. If they play those things like to an equal, then I just think it's going to be tough in Florida. But what a win this would be. And by the way, so I always thought this was interesting. I'm going to close with this. We talked this again on the 107.5 show, Chris, about how Carolina is percentage-wise. What do we say it was for this game? 70
in the FBI?
Yeah, FBI 70,
about
71.
A little over 70.
They're obviously not favored against Tennessee or Clemson, and the numbers are pretty low.
Yeah.
However, it's a weird thing about numbers and percentages. South Carolina, I saw this on Reddit. Shout out to the Reddit Gamecocks page. And I wish I had the user's name. I'm sorry. Shouting it out, though. Gamecocks Reddit. They actually have, if you add those things together, it's like a 46-ish, 47% chance to win one game of the three.
Oh, interesting.
Which is a higher number given the individual percentages than I would have thought it would have been. So it's almost a coin flip that they will find a way, just by the numbers, by the percentages, that they will find a way to win one of these games. So which game will that be? Obviously, your chances are good if you can go ahead and some of that's being propped up by the fact that even though it's a 70% chance that Florida wins this game, that's much different than the 84, 85, 83. So it's something like that for those final two games against Tennessee and Clemson. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's a big drop off there. Speaking of numbers, though, our friends at Liberty Tax will handle all of your tax numbers for you. Give them a call, 803-462-5576. Shout out to our buddy Larry at Liberty Tax. They've got 3 awesome locations in the Midlands. Irmo, they've got Lexington, they've got officially Columbia as well. 803-462-5576. Tax time is right around the corner. Or if you own a business or run a business and you just hate the sort of bookkeeping side of things, the number side of things, the accounting side of things, they have experts on staff, on hand, that can help you out here locally. So go check out our friends at Liberty Tax. Again, 803-462-5576. All right, y'all, that's going to do it for us. We will have Kendall Smith and I will have one last final quick thoughts about the game. That will be at some point on Saturday for our Before the Sandstorm. Kendall will be on location in Florida. I'm trying to get her set up at the Spurrier restaurant.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
For this. From what I've been told, however, this place will be packed on game day. So, I don't know. Maybe that happens. Maybe it doesn't. But either way, Kendall will be joining us from Florida. All right. He's Chris. I'm Wes. We're about to chow down. He's got his grilled pimento cheese sandwich with thick cut bacon. I've got a pulled pork quesadilla with cheese.
Oaxaca
cheese. I'm glad. Chris is our resident pronunciator of words that I don't know. But I had that cheese. That same cheese was on the grilled cheese. I think
phenomenal.
Amazing. I don't know what it is, but it's amazing. All right, for Chris, I'm Wes. You have a great weekend. We'll see you soon.